There's a silent pandemic growing up in terms of mental health. And this is something that we need individually to take care of. Putting yourself first is not a selfish act. It's actually taking care of yourself so you can take care of others. Schools should no longer be a deposit of children. Hours should be less. The focus on disciplines should be totally different in the sense that yeah, they need to learn English and some math, but not as much as they're learning today. Why? Because we have challenges today as artificial intelligence and super intelligence coming. So, what we need actually is to foster kids and prepare kids to be creative. Whatever you feel you're in flow doing, where you're doing something and you don't feel the time passing by, and you spend hours at it, and at the end you're not even tired, you just enjoyed it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Onion Soup. I'm truly excited to have our guest on today, Miss Catia Arnaut. How are you doing today?
Hi, how are you?
Doing wonderful. So I'm so excited because you pretty much have a PhD in happiness.
Yes, pretty much, that's it, yes.
Yeah, so let's talk about how you went from what you were doing before earlier on in your career, and now you have multiple books that outline the almost the equation to how one becomes happy and what happiness really is.
Okay, so I think that the need to jump into that topic has to do a bit with my background and my personal life experience. So I lived in three different countries for a period of more than 12 years. So I lived in Dubai in the UAE, then from there to Africa, Angola more precisely. And the latest country I've been was Switzerland, where I lived in Geneva. And being a Portuguese, these are quite different countries, not only from an income perspective, for you to have an idea. So, when I lived in Dubai, the average GDP per person per day was about 80 US dollars. In Angola was about $4 US, and in Geneva was the highest, about 180. So living in those countries and understanding how people really felt and experienced happiness was so different. So I there was always a question in the back of my mind, like what makes it so different, right? Is it the climate? Between the UAE and Angola was not, because it's really sunny pretty much all year long. So I thought, is it income? It doesn't. It is. It does. It didn't really feel like that, especially because in Angola people were a lot happier, and in the sense that if they could party every day, they would, and hang out with friends and so forth. And in Geneva, the highest GDP per person per day, people experience and feel and describe happiness in a quite different manner than the other countries. So was it religion? What was it? I would say that in the midst of a midlife crisis, I decided to take some time for myself, in the sense of I kept on going with my professional career. I was in a multinational in IT as a director, but I decided this. I need to ensure to allot some time here to deep dive in what is this happiness all about from a scientific perspective, and what makes it so different from one country to the other. So yes, you're right. So in the end, I took a PhD on happiness, and happiness here on a national level.
That's so interesting. So when you're looking at happiness, one of the things that you really point out is the meaningful relationships that go along with happiness. Is that something that standard across the board when you look at the various nations, or can one be happy by themselves?
Both are true, right? So yes, of course, there are some happiness skills that you can develop and you can work on and with integrating your life in a very practical and easy way, such as, and I would say the four main ones are gratitude, meaningful relationships, purpose, and generosity. And this is something that you can easily integrate in your life, in your daily life, as well as share it with others and your family members and so forth. And of course, science points out that as you practice it, even if you stop, the effects will endure in the case of gratitude for more than 6 months. So yes, you can actually work on yourself in the area that you have some control over, and actually boost your well-being level. uh, there are factors, of course, that you don't control. The context you don't control. If the country you're in goes through an economical crisis, if it goes to war or something like that. And I'm not saying that it's totally impossible. It's not. People, we know that people still can find happiness even in these harder contexts, right? But it's of course, because it's out of your control, it's something that you can't really count on or change. So it's about how you can actually work on yourself to be able to experience, or at least uh, experience happiness on one hand, or try to boost it on the other. Then of course there's, and I call it another layer, which is the time you spend working, right? So it's not something that you can say it's not important, in the sense that on average, people spend 45% of their time working, right, throughout their lifetime. So it's not something you can neglect, even from a statistical point of view, right? So that is super important, in the sense that if you're not happy, either because it's not what you want to do, and or because even it's something that you like to do, but the environment in the company, your peers, your boss, is someone that actually drains you, or does not recognize you, or does not give you the challenges you need to feel stimulated and be able to progress and flourish. Of course, that is also impactful on your overall well-being, right? It's not what I usually say. There was this kind of taboo a few years back that said good professionals walk into the office but leave their personal problems out. And what I usually say when I hear such a thing is that yes, that's perfect, and that really works when you're schizophrenic, right? So it's not possible. I mean, it's something that either you come in as a whole human being, right, with your personal aspect and your professional one, or you're just like, uh, what are you doing? Who is that being there, right? That person has some mental issues, some serious ones, I would say. So yes, of course, there are, you need to take that into account as well. And there are ways to improve that, not only from an organizational standpoint, but also from your personal standpoint. Finding your purpose is so important, and sometimes so hard to actually do that magical spot where your values and your gifts uh, interrelate with what the community, the world, your neighbors need, and how you can, in fact, monetize it. So it's not easy, but everyone has one, and it doesn't have to be grandest like Mandela, Gandhi, or someone like that. It can be as important as being able to do something for the street you live in, and that is already meeting probably your purpose. So that is of course super important in the sense of the fulfillment that you get out of it.
Mm. No, Kate, you hit on a couple of really important key points, especially the aspects of schizophrenia where people are masking, and the psychology where we call that masking, when people and literally put on a different face So before we dive into happiness on a national level, I really want to talk about why people are so unhappy. You talked about some of the aspects that are unchangeable, difficult to change, out of our control. How do we recognize what we can and cannot change? How do we gain that wisdom to give ourselves grace to say, hey, I don't like this. I want to move on. Or maybe you can't leave your job, but you can bring your whole self to work and be more peaceful. How do we recognize it and then how do we change it? And why are we unhappy?
So I, from a general level, I would say there's and this is not something that is on the news, but there's a silent pandemic growing up in terms of mental health. And this is something that we need individually to take care of, right? And one, I would say one key aspect to start doing that is ensuring that you have a right work-life balance. And on that work-life balance, being able to on your free time, on your personal time, if I had one activity to recommend, I would definitely say invest in your personal relationships, in your meaningful relationships. This new era of digital connect has actually brought us physically disconnected. And as human beings, we need that more than anything else. So the fact that I usually do this exercise, which is very simple. It's just asking people, okay, if you're in a really hard situation, if you're really struggling with something, um, and you're losing your sleep over it, who do you call at 3 a.m. in the morning? The person who pops up in your mind is, and when it does, of course, is of course the person that is going to be there for you, is going to help you to bounce back from whatever situation you're facing, right? And you're in. So the second exercise I usually propose on that is, okay, so call that person, try to schedule a coffee, a meal, lunch, dinner, whatever. Just go there and tell that person how important that person is to you and to your life. And by just a simple thing like that, you're practicing gratitude, you're practicing generosity, and of course, you're strengthening your personal relationships. So that it's about that. It's about losing a bit, I would say, losing a bit the time on the screen and replacing it for real connections with real people and people that you know will be there for you when the going gets tough. So I would say if there's one thing I could recommend, that's it. And of course, that will soothe you and reassure you, even from a safety standpoint, and will bring you additional peace. Of course, there are other tools that you can use, and of course, mindfulness for those who are able to do that. Not everyone is able to practice mindfulness, but doing a sport, going outdoors, spending time in nature is so important. And this is something that, especially in the great urban areas, we're getting increasingly more disconnected with. So just a simple stroll on the beach, if you can, or by the seaside, will definitely level or bring down the stress levels you have. So that will help you to somehow soothe and be more peaceful, as you mentioned. But of course, as anything in life, it takes a bit of discipline and a bit of practice. It doesn't, if if you have a stressful life and you go to the beach once a month, yeah, that's good, and probably on that day will feel great. But what are you doing on the other 28, right? uh Being putting yourself first is not a selfish act. It's actually taking care of yourself so you can take care of others. And I would say that most people usually forget about that, especially women tend to forget about that quite easily.
Yes, definitely. It's so interesting because you went directly into what I want to talk about as far as putting yourself first, as you say, showing yourself that self love because you truly can't. love someone else until you love yourself. But sometimes it might be a little bit difficult for us to get there and to recognize that. Why do you think that so many of us tend to give, 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 but not pour into our own cups?
There are so many factors that can contribute to that, right? Sometimes it's easier. It's so painful to look inside. Sometimes and it's hard work, right? But you just need to be up to it. This is your box, this is your container, this is what you came with, this is what you have to work with, right? And all this will help you in all areas of your life. So giving is good, but it can also be a strategy to disregard what you have to work on, right? So and what you have probably to fix. Generosity has this trick, right? Uh, you can, and there's an interesting book which is called the generosity paradox, that talks about that. It's when you're in a position that you're giving and you're helping others, it puts you in a position similar to God, right? You put people owing to you, and that is a very tricky situation, because then it's not generosity, plain and simple. Then it becomes manipulation. So it's about, as everything in life, I would say, it's about balance, and it's about putting your heart, your true heart, into stuff, whatever that is, and whatever that is. So if giving is okay, as long as you ensure that by giving, you're not actually disregarding yourself or even disrespecting yourself as you do it.
Interesting. That brings to mind this whole fine line, almost like walking a tightrope between the egoic self giving to an individual and genuinely giving. How do you recognize when you're giving out of ego versus you're truly doing so out of active love and kindness?
Well, if you expect something in return, right? I think that's the trick. If you, even if it's unconsciously that you expect something in return, when you get that oh part in the equation, then it's out of ego, right? It's not out of your kind heart. If you do it without actually expecting anything in return, the world will provide, the universe will provide. There are plenty of studies that show the ripple effect of generosity. The University of Sorbonne has a beautiful amount of essays and papers on that. So there is a ripple effect, but if you're counting on it, or if you're expecting, or uh, when you plan to give, you expect something in return, then definitely it's out of ego, not out of a pure intention of generosity.
Diving into those synchronicities. So we were talking earlier on of the importance of taking care of yourself so you can help others, and that increasing the amount of, let's say, energy, right? Positive energy, good flow, love that you put out into the world. How does that start to affect your neighbor, and your family, and so on and so forth? How does your taking care of yourself positively affect the environment around you?
Completely. I wouldn't go that far to the neighbor. I would even take the example in the family. If you're not taking care of yourself, you can even go after the others, your spouse, your kids, but it's not going to be the same. If you get sick, you won't be able to help and support others as if you were in perfect health. And this is as plain as simple. This is such a good example, right? And if you're going through some difficulties, or even some mental health issues, that is not written. It's not something that you see, that it's visible and palpable. It's not the same as breaking an arm, for example, or a leg, right? That is so visible. That person is sick. That person can't move. But with mental health, it's the same thing, right? But you can't see it. That's the trick, right? And sometimes it's even hard to diagnose, and for the self to diagnose, or to at least be able to recognize, I may need some help here. And but that's it. If you don't do that self-care, even if you try hard to take care of others that could be living in the same house as you, it's not going to be the same. And eventually it will bring you a even a higher invoice for you to pay, right? In the sense that you because you're not taking care of yourself and you're taking care of others, the burden on yourself will only increase, and the penalty for that will eventually reflect on physical health as well. So it's it's really a necessity, and women have this nurturing, mothering responsibility, and even nature, which is perfect and fine, but they are probably the ones that need to be more alert to this situation, and take off that idea that taking care of themselves is selfish, because they need to take care of others. True, they probably do, but if they're not okay, they won't be good to anyone else. So taking time for them is not definitely something selfish or something wrong, which some of the culture also dictates, and that has religious influence as well, as you know. So it's something that we need to plain and simple just put in our heads.
Yeah, you mentioned the culture being an aspect of why we don't take care of ourselves. And here, living in the West, I live in Arizona, and in America, we have this hustle culture, and people just go to work and then go home. You take care of your family and your kids, and you go back to work and you're exhausted. 12, sometimes 13, 14-hour shifts. How do you find time, and how did we get to such a place where not just the Western society, but other cultures around the world just don't have enough time for themselves? Why are we working so hard?
Well, that's a great question, Dexter. I think, and that links to a bit the work I did. I think this model we're living under, it's exhausted. That doesn't work, right? This excessive focus on income, um, well, it was great. GDP is amazing. It's an amazing indicator and served us all very well since World War One and Two, allowed us to rebuild the world, and of course to provide with lives much better life standards than we had, and that's perfect. But of course, GDP and focusing only on income has a lot of downsides to it. First and foremost, there are a lot of limitations to the indicator itself, right? To GDP itself, and uh, from a national standpoint, GDP, and I love there's Robert Kennedy speech in 1968 that's absolutely amazing on this, that he says, well, GDP is great, but it doesn't count what it really what it's really meaningful. It doesn't count for the quality of our political debate. It doesn't account for the quality of our families. It doesn't count for the joy and the laughter of our kids, and so forth. But it counts for a lot of other things like rifles and spec knives and deforestation and oil spills and so forth. So and that's it, right? So it's about, why do we, so this model, with all the advantages it had, and it had a lot, income has been consistently increasing since 1950 something. So that's good. The quality and the standard of life has increased consistently up until now. That's okay, but it's not like we're better off. you see climate change is bringing consequences everywhere. In fact, this week here in Portugal, we had the worst storms in record ever. People are without houses, infrastructures are destroyed. Um, some areas look like settings in Ukraine. So it's really appalling, and this is becoming more and more frequent. And it's not here in Portugal or Europe, in the US, with the fires, with the snowstorms and so forth, is impacting everyone's lives, right? So that international conflict and increasing inequality, especially in terms of income. um, the last study shows that 5% of the population has the control over almost 85% of the wealth in the world. Does this make any sense? So it's about, okay, so this was good, but this also brought a lot of consequences. And today we're in a context of multi-systemic crisis. So this model is done, worn out. We need to rethink how we can and probably redefine what we think progress is. And for me, progress should be centered on humans first, and exactly to address these situations that you've been mentioning. So, why are people unhappy if and the quality and standard of life has never been better, right? Why are people getting sick? So so our focus is not it's not fine-tuned, and it should be other, in my opinion. And I believe that one alternative for measuring progress should be through well-being. And that's why, so basically that's why, to circle back to the beginning of the conversation, that's why I decided to research on that and propose a model that could probably aid on that topic and measure progress based on it, prioritizing the citizens' well-being, which should be anyway a mandate for all governments if things were really by the letter as they should be, and fixing that and putting citizens' well-being first. And that doesn't mean that we don't care about money anymore. It's not a romantic idea. It's about, because of course we need to have our necessities met, but we need the consumption we have today. Probably not. Should we constrain it to the environment limits? We should. There's no other alternative. So how can we do that? It's complex, of course. There are a lot of trade-offs in that, but it's a matter of changing the lens and changing the priorities. And by changing the priorities, you need to change what you measure. So let's try to measure what really matters.
Mm. You know, you mentioned a lot there, and as we talk about the debt to income ratio being very differently during World War One, two, and today, especially even from the '60s to present day, the debt to income ratio is very different. You also mentioned the multi-level systemic issues that go on, not just in the West, but in countries all around the world. When we're talking about trying to fix that, change the entire infrastructure, put people first. What exactly does that look like from an individual and national level? Because the individual can probably find 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes to take care of themselves and take care of their health. But on a national level, we're talking about reforming healthcare, reforming the way that commerce is ultimately done, and as you mentioned, the resources. So, how can you create a model that helps everyone along that spectrum?
Well, things need to change. The paradigm needs to change, and of course, we all need to a bit comply to it, right? So, from a national standpoint, you're totally right, Dexter. And of course, probably it doesn't work if we consider just one country doing it, and should be something more on a global scale. And you're totally right in the sense that justice needs to change. Health would change as well. Education would totally change as well. The way that we look at international institutions and organizations should be reformed. Uh, the way we look at income should also be reformed, and of course, other things like how we look at consumption, how we look at transportation, and so forth. So, giving you an example regarding education, which is something which I bet that is a sweet topic for you. But um, schools can no longer be, or should no longer be, a deposit of children. Uh, Hours should be less. The focus on disciplines should be totally different, in the sense that, yeah, they need to learn English and some math, but not as much as they're learning today. Why? Because we have challenges today as artificial intelligence and super intelligence coming. So what we need actually is to foster kids and prepare kids to be creative. And by creative means that the competency that will allow them to actually solve problems. Problems will always be there. That's the only thing that we know for sure. And the math and the models can be processed by artificial intelligence, uh, and all that. So, and super intelligence, of course, and big data and machine learning, all that, which are technologies that we already have available. So let's forget about it. Let's focus on what are the challenges that will be on our doorstep in 10 years, 20 years, probably less, right? So creativity, that's for sure. Peace studies, definitely for sure. We need to be able to learn how to understand the other, and how to embrace diversity and its richness, instead of the device that we're increasingly seeing today. And of course, all the competencies regarding happiness and community living. And of course, all that you can have in terms of mindfulness, sports, especially team sports, and so forth, that can foster not only provide individuals with tools that can aid them to balance themselves, to, of course, to endure the challenges that they'll be facing. The work the will be quite different, right? We will be much more task oriented rather than an end-to-end job as we have today, because most of it can definitely be done with the help of machines, robotics, and of course artificial intelligence and so forth. So what will be required of people, and this has a social state weight that I can discuss in a bit, that needs to be thought of thoroughly, is how can we still help people and give them tools to actually find their purpose in life, because work is important and people need to work to feel valued and contribute to the community and the society they're in. How can they do that in what it looks like a task oriented world, and still be fulfilled for that? So what education needs to do actually is to provide the space in order for the youngsters to have the tools to find their purpose and to work on that. And that means, of course, less time, less focus on this grade, evaluation, tests, things, and of course the social skills that are required to raise humans to be able to live in a community that actually cherish and cares for one another. Now, regarding this of course has an impact on the social state, right? So, how do you ensure that people have the means to be able to survive if the work will be just task oriented? Of course, the wage in in theory will decrease per task, right, and not a full wage as we have today to do a job from one end to the other. So there are of course some proposals I also present on the book, such as the 4-day week, already to balance the equation and to foster work-life balance, with all the benefits it brings from a productivity aspect, but also from a well-being aspect as we know it. And there have been several pilots that already demonstrate that across the world. But also limitarianism, which is basically establishing a threshold, and this can be a bit controversial, but I'll go ahead and say it anyway. So limitarianism, which is basically setting a threshold in how much you can get, in the sense that we're facing some people in the world becoming not billionaires but trillionaires now, right? And that will become a reality probably already this year, 2026. When is enough? When is enough? So limitarianism, what says is that different than sufficientarism, is that uh, after a certain point, and that threshold can be discussed, of course, after a certain point, there's accumulating wealth is doesn't serve anyone, not even the self, right? The trillionaire. So after that threshold, that amount of money, whatever that is established, that amount of money should be applied to erase inequalities, especially income inequalities. So if you apply that from in a global perspective, and there have been attempts of doing that in a very shy manner, like taxes to big fortunes, and that never saw the light of day, but there have been discussions on that topic. So if you do that, um, uh, something will be done in the sense of being able to restore a bit of balance, not only in the world, but in terms of income around the world. And there's also another proposal that comes into this, which is the universal income for everyone, which the concept is basically, and facing this context of robotics, artificial intelligence, and so forth, that anyone should be entitled to have a, an income, and the income should be set at a point or the level that provides dignity to each individual. So to be able to take care of himself and provide for their basic needs, like so shelter, food, and so forth. So now the challenge is, how do you finance it? Right? This sounds like a very cool idea, and probably the solution for the challenges that are coming very, very quickly. But how do you finance it? So limitarianism can be a way, that's for sure. And probably being not to put the bar, the threshold may not have to be put as high as just for the trillionaires, but probably lower than that, quite lower than that. But to find a way that the taxes and the income is distributed in a way that people are not only able to survive, but to do it with dignity and still be able to be part of the society and be able to contribute to it. So it's not only, I would say, it's not only fluffy kind of thing concept that yeah, let's all be happy. That's a very pinkish world, right? But it's about especially understanding and thinking about the challenges that are here. So climate change is here already. It's there's no way you can deny it. But all these that are coming really fast, that will be very disruptive to work as we know it, to tax collection as we know it, to government empowerment as we know it, and even to world security as we know it, and thinking about it, and how can we reframe it in a way that, instead of, as you mentioned in your question, makes people sick with 14-hour jobs, not being able to have time to even balance themselves and doing uh, small things like taking a stroll by the beach, just, or enjoying nature, or just rebalancing themselves. How can we do that to have a more balanced world from every aspect you can see, and of course that includes the individual.
You know, what I love about all that is that you started off talking about the paradigm shift, and we talk a lot about paradigm shifts on the show, but you really were able to lay out a way to go along with this shift. The paradigm shift is happening anyway. We're going through some type of shift in our society as a culture. And I just love the way you laid that out. When we start talking about why people are unhappy, perhaps globally, it seems as if, as you said, we're working with an old playbook. You know, we're working with something that's very antiquated at this point. And in order for us to be happier more individually and nationally, we need to switch things over to a completely new way of thinking, way of living, way of behaving. But when you're looking at things from a socioeconomic standpoint, once you start having some form of universal income, will that really make everyone happy? Because I'm sure some people will choose to sit at home and do nothing. And if you have universal income, why go out and be all you can be?
That's an interesting question, Dexter. In fact, uh, I when I came across the concept the first time, I almost thought about the same thing. Then I thought, okay, but we do have unemployment subsidies, and people don't sit around, right? They actually look for jobs because it's dead boring to do nothing. And there comes, and of course, there's also been pilots around the world on this. There's a very interesting one. I think it's the biggest one, and the one that it's been going on for longer, which is in Maricá, in Brazil. And in fact, what the numbers and the study shows is that it actually contributed to the development of the area, rather than to have people on vacations and enjoying the weather. It has to do with that human intrinsic need of actually doing something and contributing, and being valued for it. The same thing happens if you have a regular job. If it comes to a point that you don't feel that, or you don't see the value of what you're doing, or you don't recognize that uh, it may be bringing value, but something that you do not agree with it, or it's not according to your set of values, that becomes really frustrating. Can get you sick even, right? So it's the same. Just laying back and sitting at home can probably be good for a month or two, but that's it. It'll get to you. So the income, in fact, this solution of income to everyone. There's a what I defend is actually a participatory income, which means that people are invited. They're under the income anyway. They're entitled to it, but people are invited to somehow retribute to the community somehow, through work for the community, to allowing hours to care for others, to care for the streets, to care something. Why? in my opinion, I think that not only contributes to getting people to experience other things, but probably to find purpose as well. So, and of course, to not to be on the risk of getting some starting to feel depressed or something because they haven't found it or they aren't able to work. So it 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 erases all those risks just by having people contributing some one way or the other to the community they are a part of. So if for me, in fact, participatory income is actually even a more balanced way of ensuring that.
Now, Katia, driving into people finding purpose, I want to touch on something that you brought up a little bit earlier, or you alluded to, was the shift in education and how we should shift our education from really being left brain logical and dive more into right brain creative, so people can find that purpose and people can find a way to contribute to the community. That makes sense, especially when we're talking about the youth of America, I mean, of the world. But when you're talking about the population who's currently in the workforce, how do you tell them to, or how do you get someone to sit down to shut off their left brain logically and find that purpose and then translate that into being a contributing individual to society?
Well, that's a challenge, right? And that's why organizational well-being is so important, right? On one hand, by helping companies to manage differently and teach them to manage differently, in the sense that um, this is not rocket science, right? If people are happier, they produce more, and more productivity usually translates into cash, so profit to the company. So how do and of course there are several ways to do that. How do you teach them to manage in a way that, instead of burning out people, which is what we're seeing today in most of the cases, and depressing people and so forth, actually allows them to flourish. So that is one way. The second way, of course, the responsibility is not only on the company, right? It has to be always as well on the individual, in the sense of wanting to increase their well-being. And yes, the point you touch is super, super important. Our generation has been brought up and educated to be productive, to contribute to production. We haven't been brought up or educated to be human beings. And and that's a huge difference, right? So it's only natural that people come to the age of 40 and usually go through a midlife crisis and try to question themselves, what am I doing here? Or what legacy do I want to leave behind once I'm gone? How do I want to be remembered? Right? Some people have it earlier, but I would say between 40 and 50, you can't escape to these questions. Usually that's actually, and that's where your happiness throughout life is actually lower. It's between that 40 and 50 age, right? It's when these difficult questions come about. So in the end, it's the challenge is to individually ask yourself if the work that you're doing and what you wake up to every single morning resonates with you and your set of values, or it does not. And my guess is that that question started for most of the people during COVID. So during COVID, as you saw, there was this quiet quitting wave that hit all sectors, IT in particular, but all sectors in general way. And basically, people were asking these questions like, "What am I doing? Is this organization, the values of this organization? Is this for me? Is this something valuable?" So basically, what happened was people had the time and the opportunity to evaluate what they were doing. They were not running from 14-hour kind of thing, from house to work and work to kids and kids to, and then sleeping in a rush and then back again into the hamster circle all over for the, I don't, probably months ahead. So they really have the time to question what they were doing and if it made sense or not. And the fact is, of course, there was a big wave of quiet quitting, but I don't think the movement stopped there. It's probably a little bit numb at the moment because in the end, economy picked up, but the question is still there, and it will come to all of us in one time or the other. And then what you have to do is go through that challenging part of, okay, so then what makes me happy? And most people don't know how to answer that. Or what's my purpose? And then it seems like a very daunting question. And it is. It's not easy to find. In the end, it's understanding and knowing yourself to know, okay, so what are my gifts? What can I give to the universe, to the street, to the community, to the society, to my friends, to the people I know? What do I have that I can give? What am I good at? Okay, and what do I enjoy? What am I good at, and what do I enjoy doing? Because these can be two different answers, right? And then understanding, okay, so what does the world needs? What, or maybe what does my city need, or what my street needs, or what my community needs, or even what my tribe, the people I relate to. And then understanding, where's the link, where's the interconnection, what is common to these two groups, and that's probably your purpose, right? Then what you have to think is, okay, so how can I make this, how can I monetize this? Because purpose, it's, you don't have to be Mother Teresa, right? You can actually uh, uh charge for your values and for your gifts. And that's what people do. That's what work is all about, isn't it? You bring the competencies to the table and you get in exchange, you get paid for it. So with purpose, it doesn't have to be different, right? The thing is, most of the people probably aren't in touch with it or haven't yet understood or haven't even asked the questions to understand what the purpose is. So in the end is whatever you feel you're in flow doing, when you feel where you're doing something and you don't feel the time passing by, and you spend hours at it, and at the end you're not even tired, you just enjoyed it. So that's probably it, or at least in the neighborhood. So that is definitely my suggestion. But yes, so for our generation, that's definitely a tough question because we were not prepared. The school structure was not designed for you to find it out. It asked you very early on what you wanted to do for a living, and that was exactly what you trained for. Done. Go to college, do that, done, right? And then if you want to reinvent yourself, that's up to you later on in life. You have the tools, just then take care of the problem, basically.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I was asked as a child what I wanted to be, and I was gonna be a scientist. Did that, and then realized, I don't think this is where I wanna be at. It took a certain level of deep philosophical introspection to realize that I'd rather be doing this, I'd rather be sitting down, I love talking to people, and that it's been an interesting journey. But hey, Katia,
You
we only
found
have
your
a few
purpose.
minutes left. I did, and, and it's so beautiful. It's funny because I really didn't even like speaking for many years until I started doing it more regularly, and, it's not that I didn't like talking, I just didn't like what I was talking about.
And what a beautiful mission you got for yourself, Dexter.
Well, Kathy, we only have a few minutes left. Is there anything you'd like to leave with the audience before we go?
Well, yes, happiness, I would like to say happiness is not a fluffy thing. it's serious stuff, and it's serious from an individual perspective, from an organizational perspective, and of course from a national perspective. And if it's something that you usually answer when you have those questionnaires, what would you like most in life? And people answer to be happy. And sometimes to be happy, it's so hard to define. And probably what is happiness to you, Dexter, it's not the same to me. But um, just what I would like to leave on the air is, yeah, just be happy, whatever that means to you, and fight for it, and make sure that every single day, because it's not an end, it's actually the journey. So make sure that you make the best out of it every single day throughout that journey.
Mm. I love that so much. And where can people find you?
I'm in social media, so you can find me in LinkedIn, you can find me in Facebook, you can find me in Instagram. You have to apologize if I don't answer fast. I don't really like social media. I'm a happy person, so I try to disconnect as much as I can. And of course, you can find Happyology, the Science of Happiness website. So Happyology, the Science of Happiness.com, and you have the book there, and you have other funny stuff as well. So and some content, free content you can use on happiness and organizational happiness. The thesis will be made available free very soon, so anyone interested can take a glimpse. I truly recommend it, especially for people who have chronic insomnia. The book is a lot funnier, so, and a lot easier to read and to digest. But anyway, if you do have insomnia, that's the place to go, and it's free. So that's it. That's where you can find me.
Thank you so much for coming out, Katia. And I want to thank you all for tuning into this episode of Onion Soup. We'll have those links in the description below. And if you enjoyed this episode, please like, follow, and share with anybody that you feel needs to hear this. I hope you all have a great and wonderful rest of your day. As always, stay blessed. Bye.
Thank you so much, Dexter.
On the surface, my life was on track. I was a medical laboratory scientist with a degree in biochemistry, and I was preparing for a PhD. My mind was trained to see the world in data and repeatable results, but inside, I was lost. I was lost amidst the sea of depression and this overwhelming feeling that there had to be something more. Have you ever had an experience you couldn't quite explain? A moment where you felt so deeply connected to everything around you. For years, both as a scientist and as a seeker, I asked pretty much anybody who would listen these questions. You see, my journey to find this more didn't begin in the lab, but in a space of quiet meditation. As I started to heal, I was faced with a profound choice, a voice that asked, do you want to help the world by studying the brain, or by showing people how you healed your mind? I chose the latter, and I decided to call my dad, whom I often refer to as my first spiritual teacher. Years ago, he hosted these gatherings in our home for people to explore science and spirituality, and he called them Onion Soup. When I decided to create a space for these conversations, I asked my dad if I could carry on the name. He gave me his blessing, and the podcast was born. Onion Soup. The name itself is our philosophy. Life, consciousness, and the universe are all like an onion. As we peel back one layer, we find another. And just like a hearty bowl of soup, these deep conversations are meant to be comforting, nourishing, and soothing to the soul. Onion Soup is more than just a podcast. It's a space for those who are curious and those who are seekers. A place to be inspired to expand your own awareness and to soothe the soul by resonating with what your spirit already knows is true. Today, that space is growing. It's so much bigger than what I could have ever imagined. But to write this next chapter, I need your help. I'm inviting you to become a true partner in our mission. With your support through this Patreon, we can achieve 3 critical goals together. First, sustainability. To provide the resources to make Onion Soup a fully sustainable long-term project. Second, elevation. To reinvest, improving our sound and video quality. And to travel the world conducting powerful on-site interviews with our guests face-to-face. And third, expansion. To build the professional assets needed to bring our conversations to a major network, sharing this work with millions. If this message resonates with you, please look at our tiers below. For as little as $5 a month, you can get ad-free episodes and join our private community. You can become a supporter, an insider, a co-creator, or even a partner in this vision. Whatever you choose, thank you for being here and for being a part of the Onion Soup journey. Now, let's peel back these layers together.